All right, joining me now, my girl Jessi from Pigskins and Pageantry, an SEC podcast. You've been on the show before. You're one of the nicest people to me that I've met on the internet, which I know sounds weird, but it's 2021, and you develop some homies on the internet. So Jessi, welcome to the show again.
Thank you. I know. I think you and I met in like 2015 on Twitter. I'm pretty sure it was. It was several years ago. This has been ongoing.
Yeah, and you're always showing love. You're like really like nice, and there's no other way to put it. And I appreciate it. Like I'm a sucker for people that are just genuine, and you're my source when it comes to like SEC stuff. I tune into your show with Wes and Matt. Shouts to them also every now and then whenever there's like a big game or something. Just because it's the same. I sort of treat it very similarly to like baseball for me, right?
Hmm.
Where like, I don't consume all the baseball content out there, but I'll pop in like every 2-3 weeks. I'll watch my baseball tonight. I'll listen to a podcast strictly on baseball just to be caught up so I can be
Yep,
able to have a conversation. So for me, when it comes to SEC football, why not come to you?
absolutely. We love having you on the show. You're the man that knows all the betting. I'm pretty sure you help Wes out when it comes to guessing what the scores are going to be because he just looks at the Vegas line now, and that's how he makes his predictions. So I don't know if I'm totally okay with you helping him with that and educating him on that, but it's fine.
Listen, that's my that's the one thing that makes me very, very unique is my sports betting. I think it's my strongest suit, and also I'm gonna have to hit up Wes and ask for like 10%. Like I don't even, just
You need to. There's money up for grabs. Whoever has the most predictions correct throughout the season gets money on the podcast. So if I don't win, you're paying me.
oh, okay, all right. So I'll try to maybe I'll send you some picks on the side so we can get you to win that.
There we
All right.
go.
So if you guys are watching this part of the episode, you'll notice Jessi's shirt. If you go to her social media, she'll let you know that she is down with the tide. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Yo, when I hit you up, I was trying to remember what you said, and you had me laughing, and this girl, the nerve to
What
say
our
that they
conversation was. I
was
know how it started. I responded to a tweet and it was about franchise tags. And I was talking about how the Broncos should have franchise tag Brock Osweiler. That's what
wow.
it was. And then it started from there. And then it says, on my Twitter, on all of my social media, that I went to Bama. I used to work for Bama as a reporter. And I think you just immediately were like, what is it like to be in the SEC? And I'm like, come on, I'll teach you everything you need to know.
Yo, you've put me on crazy. But
Even though you pull for LSU, which still hurts me.
listen, I've become pretty cool with Deion Jones now with the Falcons, so like it's even more like I can't be convinced. I apologize. I hope this don't ruin our friendship.
I'll let it slide just
All
this
right,
once.
cool. But dude, when I hit you up about coming on the show, Alabama, they're playing Ohio State. Everyone's gonna be tuned into that one. And you said something, and I was like, "This girl, man, the nerve to say this." You were like, uh, you said something along the lines like, "Oh, I'm so happy they're back in the national championship," and I was
Yep.
like, "Dude, they're in the national championship like every year."
Not last year. Not last year. I know we get so spoiled as Alabama fans. And I think people look at us, look down on us to a certain extent. I've been a Bama fan my entire life. My whole family's from there. Like I said, I went to school there. And when I was there, I got spoiled with 3 national championships out of the 5 years I was there. So, yes, super, super spoiled. But we have what we call in our show the Saban effect, where it's either perfection or we are just absolutely miserable and disappointed. It's very interesting to watch a game with Bama fans because the entire game, if it's not perfect, we're like, well, we should have done this. We should have done this. We just can't handle anything less than perfect. I think that's a great thing because our football program is so successful because of that. But at the same time, we do get a little neurotic. So I admit we are crazy. I apologize if you've ever been personally victimized by a Bama fan.
You know, it's funny you mentioned the thing about perfection. I was watching a game. It was when Tua was there,
Mhm.
and I was watching it with my pops. And my dad is, you get along with my father because he's like, we should bet Alabama every week. He's like,
Yeah.
these guys, they win by 60 points. Or he's like, we should just bet. I'm like, why? Anytime he'll see the point spread after the fact, he'll call me and be like, oh my God, they're giving away free money. What are we doing? You know? So we're watching a game, and I just remember that they were playing in Alabama this game, and you guys are up 40, 50 points, and Nick Saban runs onto the field and calls timeout and like pulled maybe the whole offensive line he pulled, or he pulled, and my dad was saying, this guy's crazy. I was like, yo, he's a perfectionist. And then
Yeah.
I showed him the Belichick and Saban documentary too. That blew his
Incredible.
mind. Yeah. Yeah. So like, what is it just Alabama that's like that, or is that the whole South culture in the SEC?
I think it's getting more to be the South culture. If you look a few years back, you'll see if you made it to a bowl game, if you had a winning season, people were cool with it. I don't think we saw as much of the coaching carousel as we've seen since Nick Saban kind of hit the scene with the Crimson Tide in 2007. Now, mind you, he got there in '07, wins his first natty with Bama 2 years later in '09, which is insane to turn a program around like that. I mean, we were a losing program against or under Coach Mike Shula. So he came in, he turns everything around. Most people can't do that. Most people don't do that. It's unrealistic to have those expectations. And now you bring in a coach, and after 2 seasons, if they haven't gotten you into the top 10, the college football playoff, people are starting to call for their heads. I think you're seeing it right now. You're starting to see it in Tennessee with Coach Pruitt, who has only been there a couple seasons. You're starting to see it in other universities. Look at Auburn, who just fired Gus Malzahn, who won a national championship there. But people just can't handle the fact that their programs aren't, flipping over the coin right away. And like I said, it's the Saban effect. It's something that is so unique to him. And not that other coaches aren't perfectionists, they are. But I think the fans are starting to feed into that a little bit more than we used to see.
It's so weird that you get punished for not beating Alabama when Alabama beats everybody.
Yeah, I mean, like you see everyone's like, we want Bama. I mean, you even see like professional teams joke around and do that. By the way, don't ever do that because anyone that does that loses. Like it's a curse. Don't do it. But yeah, it's interesting. Everybody Alabama has now become the standard, which I'm not saying that to sound like a dick and sound super cocky. They've just become the standard.
I mean, you have, yeah. Like you can't look at that resume, and it's always weird, right? Like you always come off as biased when you talk about your team. So
Yeah.
it's just always going to be the case, right? Like if I say anything bad about Ezekiel Elliott, I'm a homer. I'm a Giants fan, you
Yep.
know. But if I say anything good about the Giants, it's like, oh, you're biased and whatnot. Meanwhile, I said they were going to go 5-11 this year. They went 6-10, so I wasn't off by much. You know what I mean? So it's just weird. I love the safety that the Giants drafted from Bama, McKinney.
Xavier
Unfortunately,
McKinney. Oh, he's so
yeah,
great.
he didn't play much this year. He played like the last maybe 2-3 games, and
But that's the
it's
thing too. Anybody that is talking about, Bama or our program, if you're a player and you want to go to the NFL, Bama's a really great school to do that. I mean, look at the NFL. Look at how many successful players went to Alabama. Don't look at quarterbacks if you are looking to go to the NFL and are going to Bama, but any other position, pretty damn good.
okay. Love it. Love that you mentioned that because it's been something that I've been super passionate about for years now, that if I was an NFL scout or an NFL coach, GM, front office guy, I would always, if I had two prospects, Jessi, that I'm conflicted on. I have a kid from Alabama Michigan, Ohio State, and he's a quarterback. And then I have a dude who's from like North Dakota, Wyoming, Illinois. Man, there's something that's going to make me gravitate to that prospect because he don't have Devontae Smith and Julio Jones and Amari Cooper and Derrick Henry in the backfield, or Jarvis Landry and Odell. Like, you look, it's weird. Some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now are not from your national title college football playoff Final Four teams, right? Like, Russell Wilson went to NC State and Wisconsin. Mahomes is from Texas Tech. Kyler Murray is from Oklahoma, which some people feel like that, you know, the Big 12 is a video game conference, right? That's still the stigma attached. And then you look at guys like Drew Brees was from Purdue. You look at dudes like Phillip Rivers, NC State, like Matt Ryan, Boston College. The list goes on and on. And there's exceptions, right? Like Matthew Stafford went to Georgia and he had studs on his team too. Like, I'm not saying that all guys are bad from those schools, but how do you feel about that stance? Do you agree with it? Do you think there's something to it as far as when you come from a Power 5 school like your school, Alabama, like Ohio State? Dwayne Haskins, another example. Like, you had Terry McLaurin. You had these dudes that go into the NFL and they're NFL talents, J.K. Dobbins in the backfield. But is it the guys around you that made you that hot prospect, or is it you?
I think it's a mixture of both. I agree. If I had somebody from Michigan, Alabama, Ohio State, you know, Clemson, whoever, and then I had the guy that went to like Wyoming and BYU and North Dakota, I'm going to look at them because you're right. They don't have the arsenal that these Power 5 schools have. If you're looking at them, it's because they have to be pretty damn good. They don't have the running backs to hand the ball off to, the wide receivers, the tight end, the offensive line that can give you enough time to make those proper decisions. So I agree. I think it's changing a little bit, not only in the SEC, but in the Big Ten, in the ACC. You're starting to see these programs that relied so heavily on defense and needed game managers as a quarterback who could just hand it to a star running back and just let him go. You're starting to see them really start to throw the ball. They're scoring more offensively. They're giving up more yards on defense than they were in the past. So I think we're starting to see that shift. And I'm interested to see if that impacts the quarterbacks going into the NFL and how they're drafted, how successful they are in the NFL. But as of right now, I would agree. I'm picking the North Dakota guy.
So in this matchup between Jones and Fields, I don't know exactly what Jones is. Someone's nervous.
I'm so nervous. I don't like playing them. The last time we played them, we lost. I don't like playing them.
I'll tell you at the end of the show what my wager has been. So I
know what the stat line is, or the betting line.
Yeah, so I don't want to tell you where my money's gonna be put to because I don't want to fuck this conversation up.
I'm nervous. Now I know where it is.
Okay,
I'm so disappointed in you.
So Jones and Fields, right? You guys have a significant disadvantage at quarterback. Fields is, what he did against Clemson was wild.
Their disadvantage isn't even at quarterback. I trust Mac Jones at quarterback. I would say our disadvantage comes from the fact that Ohio State has played half as many games as we have. We have dealt with much more attrition than they have. They're much fresher. They have literally played half the games we have. And if you look at their schedule, a little lighter, not going to go up against their talent. Their talent is fantastic. But just coming from a freshness perspective, we've had to deal with more injuries and more attrition, like I said, than they have. I think that's where the disadvantage is for us.
Wow, you're right. They've only played 7 games to your 12. So yeah, I didn't think about that. That's a good point.
That's why people didn't want them in the playoff in the first place. If anybody that listens to our show, you'll hear us really argue that going into the selection show, they had played 6 games, one of which was a conference championship. Whereas we'd gone and everybody else in the SEC had played 10 games. The ACC had played 10 games. So it was hard for us as, you know, and I think Coach Brian Kelly of Notre Dame said it best. It's hard for the committee, who has not had to deal with managing a team during a pandemic, to say, oh, well, the number of games doesn't matter. It does, though. If you're a coach and you're having to watch your players, you're having to make sure they're behaving, they're practicing, they're well on the field, they're well when it comes to the pandemic. You have to watch yourself. You have to take into consideration all these new stresses in your program that you previously didn't have to, and you still play a full schedule and someone doesn't. That's really frustrating to a coach, to a program. And I mean, you saw it. Dabo Sweeney commented on Ohio State. Like I said, Brian Kelly has. People are really frustrated.
It makes sense. It makes sense why, right? Like your resume and sort of just the number of games. Like you've seen awards get dictated because guys didn't play one game in the NFL regular season. And like now everyone is saying, I mean, I thought Rodgers is going to be the MVP anyway. My buddy Taryn and I, we spent like 20 minutes talking about this like 6 weeks ago, how we thought Rodgers' resume was just better with the talent around him being, you know, significantly less than what Mahomes had. But also, it's just crazy that one game makes a difference. Here you're talking about 5-6 game difference. And that's I think that's a really good point that you're bringing up as far as the amount of games. But I also think, like, to play devil's advocate a little bit, it's weird when you have conference commissioners and people like that dictating who can play and who can't. So it's not like Ohio State didn't want to play. They just were dealt this hand that they couldn't.
They also almost, without that conference championship, they wouldn't have had the minimum 6 games to get into the playoff, which is interesting. I think, personally, I think the whole thing in the beginning was mismanaged. I think the conferences should have gotten together and said, all right, if one of us wants to play, if all of us want to play, we need to agree right now. We're all going to start at this time. We're going to make the minimum games for everybody this, and we're only going to play 8 or whatever it is. Everyone needed to agree. And I think when each individual conference decided on their own, that's where we started to get some mismanagement and some unfairness. Or what we could have done is we could have expanded the playoff, could have made it 8 teams. So you get someone like a Cincinnati who's not in a Power 5 conference, but still went undefeated into the conversation. You get someone like Texas A&M, whose only loss is to the number 1 team, Alabama, and they beat Florida. And they still got kicked out of the playoff. They didn't make it. You expand to 8 teams, it becomes much more fair. You get all the conferences covered. You make more money. Everybody's happier, and you're truly able to see who's the best of the best. Because right now, with the way the playoff is structured with only 4 teams, if you're not in a Power 5 conference, you're not making it in. And that's not really fair. You look at, like I said, Cincinnati, who went undefeated. You look a couple years back at UCF, who also went undefeated and then went on to a bowl game to beat Auburn, who's in a Power 5. They didn't get a chance. So I think the committee needs to really look at this and think about the fact that opening it up to 8 teams would be beneficial.
I don't know if I agree with that. I feel like eventually when you add more teams to things, you kind of oversaturate your the exclusiveness to being one of those programs or teams to make it into the Final Four, right? Like you've seen it in college basketball. They'll add like when there'll be outrage about like the 65th team on the bubble. Like, dude, for what? For you to get pummeled by the 1 seed? Like, it's
also great experience, right? For those smaller programs, they finally get a chance to play those juggernauts. And that's great experience for them. That's great money for their programs. I don't know. I think the benefits just outweigh any criticism, in my opinion, when it comes to college. I mean, like you mentioned, basketball, everybody gets in. Everybody loves it. It's a month-long thing. Everybody's in it. And you get to see some of those programs that you would never normally see on a national stage.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying about the exposure to it too, and it's just such a bigger deal. I think it's just completely different with football and basketball, right? Like, so you
It's
do
fair.
have that where I don't know about 8, but I think 6 would have been cool, where you give the top
6 is
two
cool.
seeds a bye, right? Like
Yeah.
you've earned that at least, and then you just go from there and you play those games out. But I wanna go back to the national championship game.
Yes.
Smith, the wide receiver. You've
Devontae. They.
you've seen a lot of stallion wide receivers.
Mhm.
From when were you at Bama?
I started at Bama in August of 2011 and finished in August of 16. So I stayed for 5
Julio
years.
had just left, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't get to see Julio in person. I did get
Ugh.
to see Amari Cooper, though. And that's who I think Devontae reminds me of a lot when it comes to personality. So I kind of mentioned it at the top of the show, but I got to do post game and sideline reporting when I was at Bama. So I covered 13 out of the 25 NCAA sports, football being one of them. Got to do sideline, got to do press conferences, got to do pro days. And Amari Cooper is one of the guys, that I got to interview, and he is so talented. I think we see that, now in the NFL too. So talented, but has this really great, quiet confidence. He's not that loud guy in the locker room. He's definitely a leader, but it's more from his work ethic and what
Mhm.
he does and how he is on the field. And that's how I feel like Devontae is. If you watch the Heisman, you saw how quiet he is and how reserved and how he's pretty humble. I mean, he just won a Heisman and he barely talked about himself the whole time, which was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I saw a post about some teacher, his professor that wanted to. Did you see that?
Hmm.
One of his professors, her dream was, well, tell you would, I mean, fuck, why am I speaking about this? You would know better. Like, what's that tradition where a student athlete invites a professor to Brian Denny, right? Isn't that what
Yeah,
the
I get to go to Bryant Denny and get to watch from the sidelines. And he had one of his professors that he thought impacted his life and was really good in the student part of him being a student athlete and got her tickets there. And not only that, but I personally have a friend that I went to school with that his aunt, out of Birmingham is a huge Alabama fan, and she was really sick and in the hospital. And Devontae Smith, she was a huge fan, and he went and saw her in the hospital. Like, he's just delightful. I think Nick Saban said it best on the Heisman when he was like, he is truly an ambassador of our program as a person, as an athlete. He's the kind of person that you want people to look up to. And I think that's great. I think that's who a Heisman should be. It shouldn't just be what you do on the field. It should be, how you are as a person off the field too. So I was really thankful he won it. I almost cried.
I mean, dude, to be a non-quarterback to win it, especially a wide receiver. You've seen running
Hmm.
backs win it, and it makes sense, like the running back, because he gets the ball handed off. The quarterback doesn't really his success isn't really determined by the quarterback. Where like the wide receiver,
Yeah.
I always talk about this, how I feel as if it's the most unique position in all of professional sports, team
Hmm.
sports per se, because you're the first one to break the huddle. You're the furthest away from the ball. My success is solely dependent on the quarterback getting me the ball. And then it's
Yep.
also dependent on the offensive lineman to block for him to get me the ball. So I
Yep.
always back the wide receiver, Jessi, who's like, man, I need the rock. I got to get paid. I got a contract. I got to honor these
Yeah.
bonuses. Like you saw in week 17, Emmanuel Sanders needed 8 catches for a $500,000 bonus. He catches his
Insane.
8th pass and is celebrating on the floor. It's like, yeah, bro, I just made $500,000. Like
Yeah.
I'd be celebrating too. So
And
it
Devontae
was,
is not the biggest. He's not the strongest. He's super skinny. Everyone was like, "You're not going to go anywhere. You're not big enough." And now he's a Heisman winner.
how do you think, how do you think he translates to the next level? Because he's a projected top 10 pick, maybe even higher.
Yeah. Um, I think he translates well. I think a lot of people, if you're not a quarterback, unfortunately, and you go to a school like Bama, you have a coach like Nick Saban who, was an NFL coach. He can coach you up like a player in the NFL. You have that work ethic, because it's like we were talking about at the top. he expects perfection. You're not going to go into a coaching situation where it's harder. I mean, he's best friends with Bill Belichick. That's how he runs his program. So I think he's going to translate well. I think his talent is there. He's so fast. His hands are just perfect. He just finds a way to catch the ball. He can beat any defender. It's insane to watch him. I just want to know who he's going to go to, because it's like you just mentioned, it's going to depend on what quarterback he gets paired up with. It's going to be huge for him. But I do think he's a top 10 draft pick. I think, obviously winning the Heisman has made him go a little bit higher, but it's really interesting. He wasn't our number one wide receiver going into the season. It was Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle was our number one guy, and he gets hurt early on, and now Devontae steps up, and he's 100% a top 10 draft pick now.
Damn, maybe a reunion with his boy Tua or what?
That'd be incredible.
Would your heart be able to take a reunion like that?
No, I don't know. I don't know if it could. I mean, you look at our wide receivers in the NFL right now. Julio Jones has been an incredible wide receiver. Not going to lie, I pick him first every year for fantasy. Judge me, I don't care.
Listen, hold on. Let me just tell you.
I know you love Julio. I know you do.
I have won and lost so much money because I play him every single week on DraftKings. So
yep.
I am with you on. I know I'm gonna dump so much money on him every week. I'm like, I can't. I've never had him in fantasy because my heart would not be able to take it. I wouldn't be able to, Jessi. It'd be too much.
I always have him in fantasy. I was smart enough this year to pick up Josh Jacobs. Everyone in my 4 fantasy leagues slept on Josh Jacobs, and I snatched him right up. I draft heavy on Bama. But, I mean, look at Amari Cooper, too. He's done exceedingly well in the NFL. So I think if you look at our wide receivers, historically, we've done quite well. Obviously, our running backs have been kind of a mixed bag. Derrick Henry is a completely different human. You can't put him in the context of any other person.
Yep.
Mark Ingram's done pretty well, but you look like Eddie Lacy, you look at Trent Richardson, not necessarily the careers that you wanted them to have, but still, for the first couple of years did pretty well. So I'm confident and hopeful that Devontae will do exceedingly well. Jalen Waddle, I'm sure, will go. Najee Harris is another one that I know will do super well to whoever picks him up. Mac Jones, I'm interested to see where he goes in the draft.
I want to ask you about the other side of this matchup.
Yeah, Ohio State.
Outside of Fields, what scares you? What is it that makes you nervous? Because I could sense the panic in your voice.
Like I said, I'm nervous because of last time. Is it more so the idea that is it the team name that you're worried about, or is it the players? I think it's a mixture of both. I think they have a really talented football team. I think, obviously Fields is incredible. Like I said, they are a little fresher, which is great. But I think what they have too, which is good for their team, is that they have so many voices telling them that they shouldn't be there, right? Like they have so many people saying you don't deserve to be there. And I think that fuels people. That just puts a fire into you. But at the same time, I've seen on Twitter, I've seen, some quotes from the coaches and players, and they're already like, we want Bama. I want that Devontae Smith matchup. I can handle him. If you get overconfident, sometimes it's dangerous, but I do think people telling them that they shouldn't be there is a fire lit under them. That makes me nervous. I also just have PTSD from the last time we played them, and I just don't like it.
Yeah, so right now, as it stands, it's an 8-point line. 54% of the money's coming in on Alabama, while 68% of the tickets are coming in on Ohio State. So basically,
is over under still 75.5?
Correct. Yes, and there's always you're able to tell where the money's coming in and whether it's professional or public. So the public is on Ohio State because anytime you see plus 250 for a team in the national championship, people are just going to bet them blindly. Just the underdog, I'm in. But more of the professionals are on Alabama. So maybe that could help you out a little bit to just relieve you.
People are also looking at, because believe me, I have friends. I lived up in the Midwest for several years. I have friends that went to Ohio State. So the text messages have already started to flood in. And I did have one friend today say, well, you guys let Ole Miss put up 48 points on you. Absolutely. We 100% did. However, I think we've made the necessary adjustments that caused some issues in the Ole Miss game. I think we're a lot better than we were then. And one could also argue that since we have played more games together, our team is working as a unit. We've had more time to work out kinks. We've had more time to kind of gel together than somebody that's only played half our games. So it depends which way you want to look at it.
I'm excited to see that corner that you guys have. Certain? How do you say
Surtain. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Patrick Surtain. Yeah.
Going up against that speedster on Ohio State.
It'll be interesting. I have mixed feelings on him. Sometimes I'm just like, he kills it. That's my boy. And then sometimes I'm like, what the hell? Where were you? Again, I can't watch this game in a public setting. I will be at my home, probably by myself. I can't be around other humans right now. Like,
yeah,
I won't do well.
Olave might have him dancing because that dude is a speedster.
I know. This is going to be a good game, regardless of who wins. And obviously, I'll go into a deep, dark depression if Bama loses. But regardless of who wins,
I shouldn't be laughing, but I'm laughing because
it's so true.
But you've seen so many national championships that there's probably someone at Michigan right now that's like, oh my God, I want to just strangle this woman.
Oh, everyone hates me.
Yeah,
everyone hates me. Totally. But also, like I mentioned, I was a fan when Auburn beat us 6 years in a row. The Fear the Thumb shirts were all in my face all the time. Like, I was there during the Shula days, so like, back off. But yeah, I mean, whoever wins, it's going to be an incredible game. It's going to be a very high scoring game. I think we're going to get to see some of the best athletes that will ever play college football. So I'm very excited. I'm very nervous, but it's going to be a good one. I think we truly do have the best teams playing, and I'm excited to watch them.
I agree with you. I think this game is going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I love that they've done this Monday night tradition after that first round of the playoffs, and you get like 3 meaningful days of football in a row. I do hate, as someone who lives in the East Coast, that these games go until like midnight.
8 o'clock.
Brutal, but it's going to be fun. I, unfortunately, am not going to make you happy with who I think wins.
What is your prediction? I know you picked Ohio State. I want to know why, and I want to know your score prediction.
I think I'm a big quarterback gets a huge advantage for me. And I think Fields, coming off the momentum now of like Urban Meyer might coach Jacksonville, and there's rumblings, and I know someone that's at Ohio State, and they're telling me like, yo, Urban Meyer loves Justin Fields. So do you have that dynamic, right? But then again, I remember when Doug Marrone was the coach of the Bills and Ryan Nassib was the quarterback at Syracuse, and they were together, and it was like, is he going to take him in the first round? He's like, no, he's not, because he sucks. That's why he's not going to take him. But look, I think Fields wants to – if Fields lights up Bama and can win this game, that narrative is going to change as far as – not that Trevor Lawrence isn't going to be the first pick. I'm not going to get that crazy. But I think – if you're a Jets fan, you're rolling your eyes. What do you?
No, I don't know. I'm curious if Fields lights it up in the Natty, he could go before Lawrence.
I wouldn't. It's become something that it wouldn't surprise me,
because everyone thought Lawrence had the Heisman wrapped up, and he didn't.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's just it's. I don't know. I think if Fields could light it up and ball out again, he reminds me of Deshaun Watson a lot.
Oh my God, don't say that to a Bama fan. Oh my God, don't say that to me.
Yo, yeah,
I'm
listen.
unwell.
That year, Deshaun Watson and Hunter Renfrow, I won a lot. I bet Clemson when I was in Vegas at 8-1 odds.
You know what else happened that year that's similar to this year?
What?
Our offensive coordinator, Steve Sarkisian, had just accepted a job somewhere else and was coaching. It was our offensive coordinator, his last game in our national championship. Do you want to know what just happened? Our offensive coordinator, Steve Sarkisian, just accepted another job somewhere else, and the national championship will be the last game he coaches with us.
Guys,
I am unwell.
Ohio State is plus 250. She said it, not me.
I did not say that. I am pleading with Steve Sarkisian to not make the dumb coaching calls that he made against Clemson before he went to the Falcons in this game before he goes to Texas. I can't handle it.
I think the QB advantage, it's something that when it comes to the playoffs, like in the NFL, one thing that helps me and one thing I just gravitate to is I always just take the better quarterback. And obviously it's all perception, right, who you think is better than who. But like this weekend, Seattle Rams, my buddy Allen, we spent they heard it because I've already recorded with Allen the show that this is going to be pieced on. So everyone has heard this already. But I can't see that game being competitive without Goff and like Russell Wilson, right, in Seattle. Like, dude, come on. I think it's going to be a snooze fest. I think so. Fields to Jones, like I think it's a huge gap. So ultimately, that's the deciding factor for me. And I think it's going to be something along the lines of like 38-35.
See, I have the predict. I'm pretty sure that's the exact prediction. I made 38-31 was my prediction on the show, but I had it Bama, 38-31.
Oh, shocker! You picked Bama.
I will never pick against them. I mean, it doesn't matter. I can't pick against Nick Saban. I refuse to do it. I won't do it. Our Lord and Savior. I won't do it.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Monday night. I'm excited for this one.
If it goes awry, you have to just text and check on me. Make sure I'm okay.
Well, I don't know because I texted you that one time after LSU won, and you were like, "Oh, don't do this to me."
That's fair. That's fair. That was a soul crushing game. That was soul crushing. But again, we lost to like arguably one of the best teams to have ever played college football. It was like the perfect storm team. We lost to Joe Burrow and like whatever. Okay, fine.
Tell the people a little bit about your podcast, where they could find it. The floor is yours as we start to wind down here.
Yeah. So like Nick said, I am a co-host on Pigskins and Pageantry. We're an SEC football podcast. So you'll get to hear a lot more of me talking Bama, but luckily my co-hosts are Tennessee fans and Georgia fans. So you do get a little bit of a different perspective when it comes to the other schools in the conference. We obviously have different rivalries and different things important to us. So it's a fun time. We love talking about it. We always have an opinion segment, as you could just hear. I'm very big on my own, but we also do some just for fun segments that get a little silly and we just have a good time. It's just a couple friends, talking SEC football. So if you want to follow us, we are on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and we're on YouTube now. So you can catch us and actually watch us film the show together, which is really fun. And also, if you want to follow us individually, I am at Jessi Lee Russell on Instagram. So you can find the show that way as well.
Jessi, you're fantastic and awesome, and I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on. And, I'm not going to say Roll Tide, but it was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you. And Roll Tide, I hope you lose money this coming Monday.
Wow. Wishing bad on my pockets. Unbelievable. Guys, as we wrap up here, big ups to the members of the Patreon: Nick Chavez, Christopher Velasquez, Daniel Gibson, Derek Pleiades, Devin Rendon, Jake Powers, Corey Johnson Hoops, Ryan Pisner, and Mike Wozniak. I am sending out merch for you guys starting next week. Those names that I mentioned here, if you have been a member of the Patreon for the last 6 months, you're getting the merch item because of your tier. Starting as of like the last week and change. One new wrinkle is if you're in the $20 or $40 tier, the franchise tag in Supermax for 6 months in a row, Every January and July, you'll get a free merch item on my behalf and the show's behalf. It's patreon.com/veterans minimum to support the show. At Veterans Minimum is where you can find everything for the show. At the Lamb Shows, you can find everything from me. Good luck this weekend, you degenerates, and we'll catch you guys next time.